Welcome to the meeting of the 33rd LDCF-SCCF Council. We are still missing 4 seats to be represented, but we hope that during the opening and the presentations, they will join. And so by the time we get to the decisions, we will have sufficient quorum to take those decisions. So to open the meeting, let me give the floor to our chair, Carlos Manuel Rodriguez.
Thank you, William. Good morning, everybody. It's our 5th day, and today we begin with a few tangos to encourage us on our last day of sessions. As William indicated, today we'll have the 33rd council meeting of the LDCF and SCCF. I want to thank Ambassador Fituri, my co-chair, for joining me here in person, and I'm glad that you are with me as a champion of seats, as I think this council marks a turning point for our adaptation support to the seats. Let me also take a moment to remember Gustavo once more. He was a guiding force for our work in the climate adaptation, and the LDCF SCCF team has been working tirelessly with me and with many of you around this virtual table to advance action on climate adaptation and to honor Gustavo's legacy. I want also to express my appreciation to His Excellency Ambassador Conrad Hunt, Chair of OASIS, for joining us today. Your engagement and collaboration help to advance the potential of SCCF to support adaptation priorities of seats. Now, let me reflect briefly on the outcomes of Sharm el-Sheikh COP, particularly as they relate to the LDCF and SCCF. First, loss and damage. Governments took the decision to establish a new funding arrangements and the creation of a new dedicated fund. As the process unfolds in 2023, the GEF stands ready to articulate its support for this important agenda without our mandate. Climate finance, particularly doubling of adaptation finance, attract a lot of attention and concerns. The COP decision that we receive, reiterating the call for a significant amount of adaptation finance to flow through the LDCF and SCCF, speaks volume about the trust and expectation of our partners in these two funds. On this important topic, we were pleased to have a successful ministerial dialogues and pledges sessions where donors pledged $105.6 million to the LDCF and SCCF. This is a positive step forward on our ongoing efforts to meet the financial scenarios for the two funds for the GEF 8 period. I want to thank Denmark, Finland, Germany, Ireland, Slovenia, Sweden, Switzerland, and the Walloon region of Belgium for your pledges. I particularly want to express my appreciation to Denmark, Germany, Ireland, Slovenia, and Switzerland for pledging $35 million to SCCF. Your support to SCCF will help to breathe new life for this fund, which is needed to meet our responsibilities for the fund to serve the Paris Agreement. I want to express my heartfelt appreciation to Gabriela and Switzerland for your steadfast and principled support to the SCCF. Many thanks also go to Belgium, Canada, France, the United States, and the European Commission for their political support to the LDCF-SCCF programming strategy. The Sharm el-Sheikh implementation plan agreed at COP27 welcomed the pledges, clearly highlights the roles of LDCF and SCCF, and underscores the important role of the GEF within the climate finance landscape in supporting adaptation actions, particularly in the LDCs and seeds. Against this positive development, we have important topics to discuss today. The agenda includes the first work program of the GEF 8 period with 2 projects. In particular, the LDCF SACF Multi-Trust Fund project aimed to support community-based adaptation in the B20 countries with respect to CSOs, communities, indigenous peoples, and private sector. We are pleased with the partnership with the B20 group, which is active in addressing loss and damage. We will also discuss the LDCF SACF progress report. We are also delighted to share with you our vision for inclusive GEF assembly and its challenge program, a new opportunity to support initiatives on the ground. As we look at the road ahead, I would like to reflect on the words of Simon Steele, the Executive Secretary of UNFCCC, who remind us that adaptation funding for the poorest and most vulnerable nations is not an expense. It is an investment in the safety and well-being of a million of people. Making this investment effectively can only be done by actively engaging the actual people, including youth, women, indigenous people, and private sector, to design, implement, and own action. This is why the whole of a society approach for adaptation that we have embraced in the GEF 8 LDCF SACF strategy is extremely important. My commitment to you is that the LDCF and SACF will continue to strive to be a premier league in adaptation support in terms of impact, country engagement, innovation, inclusion, and effectiveness. Let me close up by sharing my personal appreciation to all of you for your engagement and support to the LDCF and SACF. I'm looking forward to active discussions today. Thank you so much. With this, let me share the floor with my co-chair, Ambassador Fituli. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Carlos Manuel. And in the same spirit, we'd like to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our esteemed council members. Thank you for joining us in this very important session of our council meeting. So now we have in our virtual presence His Excellency Ambassador Conrad Hunt, who is the Deputy Permanent Representative of Antigua and Barbuda to the United Nations and Chair of the Alliance of Small Island Developing States, AOSIS. And I'm very privileged to give him the floor for his to deliver his remarks. Over to you, Ambassador.
Thank you, Ambassador. Had a little technical glitch there, but good morning and certainly good afternoon and good evening to you wherever you are. It's certainly a pleasure to be here and it's certainly a pleasure to see you again, Ambassador. First, let me thank you, co-chairs, for this opportunity to say a few words from the perspective of small island developing states. I do believe this is perhaps the first time that as chair of AOSIS, we have been invited to address the LDCF and the SCCF Council. I am certainly pleased to have this opportunity to do so. For us as people in vulnerable communities, all 39 small island developing states globally, the SCCF as well as the LDCFs are crucial. The adaptation support they provide is vital for our lives, livelihood, ecosystem, and well-being of our future generations. With this new GEF 8 strategy, it is now feasible to earmark adaptation support to small island developing states through the SCCF Window A. As a resident of a small island developing state and as chair of AOSIS, let me tell you, this new dedicated window is very welcome and long overdue. For us, as the majority of small island states are not LDCs and cannot access the LDCF, thus the issue of the SCCF is very important. So as my friend and elected council chair, Faturi, Ambassador, you have said, We can certainly graduate from being LDC status, but we can never graduate from being a small island developing states. Indeed, the very existence of many small island developing states is a threat from the rising seas and other climate risks. Antigua and Barbuda is not ODA eligible. Yet when Hurricane Irma hit my country a mere 5 years ago, 45% of the houses in Antigua became uninhabitable. To some people, this may be just another number, but I implore you just for a moment to imagine if this percentage, 45% of the homes inhabitable, was translated to your own country. Surely it would leave you reeling. Yet all these years, SIDS have not had a dedicated adaptation support from any of the multilateral climate change fund. When we try to access adaptation fund, we have to compete with large developing countries that have more capacity. So as long as a climate fund favors project that prioritizes a large number of beneficiaries and hectares of land, SIDS will always be disadvantaged. With severe capacity constraints recognized in the Paris Agreement, Article 11, Paragraph 1, SIDS have faced an unequal playing field in accessing adaptation support. This, of course, does not do justice to the reality of small island developing states. So we are certainly delighted that this move of the GEF Secretariat part to focus the SCCF Window A on adaptation needs for SIDS. SIDS Window A has two scenarios, one that targets at least 200 million and an ambitious scenario for 400 million for 2022-2026 period. There is already donor momentum to support the two funds, and we need your help, certainly, to achieve this ambitious scenario. Here, I would like to just single out two events. And of course, both co-chairs spoke of the issue of out of COP. First, June COP27 in Egypt, EOSIS and Switzerland and Ireland sent out a joint appeal to all donors calling for practical, scaled-up adaptation support to small island developing states through the SCCF. And I'm hoping countries have taken notice and will respond. Of course, Carlos, you did indicate that we did get some support when the GEF organized a pledging event for the LDCF and the SCCF at COP27. Many ministers from SIDS and LDC spoke, and many donors made statements of political support for the two funds. Most importantly, we saw real action in the forum of pledges to both the LDCF and the SCCF, and this was certainly excellent news for us. This support is really needed to build climate resilience in SIDS developing sectors, tourism, agriculture, fisheries, infrastructure, and also for the health and livelihood of our people. The new SCCF window and support to SIDS will enable us to address priorities in these sectors. So let me conclude my remarks with a reality check. As grateful as we are, the pledges made to date are but a drop in the ocean compared to what's needed for adaptation in SIDS. So I will urge other donors at the table here today to please contribute generously to the SCCF as well as the LDCF. Both funds are aligned with countries' needs as SIDS, and I can assure you that we will utilize the SCCF support fully, quickly, effectively, developing innovative proposals that deliver climate finance to communities on the front line. So thank you on this note, and let me wish you a successful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Hunt, for that presentation. I'm nodding my head, excuse me, all the time. I think that's a sign of a bad negotiator, but I'm nodding because I'm in agreement with what you're saying. I never thought for a moment that I will attend a council meeting when we will be discussing a dedicated adaptation fund for, but you made the case. And the important thing is that I think most of the heavy lifting has been done, and we are grateful to not only to my co-chair Carlos Manuel for the leadership, but importantly for those countries who put up their hands to assist. Because at the end of the day, we may have all the right resolutions and we may have the right decisions, but without the resources to try and implement some of these funds. So it will be very difficult for us to try and implement some of our adaptation needs. But no, I just want to thank you again, because I'm a great believer in the saying, it's the foot that wears the shoe that knows best whether the shoe fits or not. It's not the salesperson who will say, it looks very nice on you, Ambassador Hunt, yet it's probably too loose, too tight, or who knows, maybe it fits properly and perfectly. So I think it's like a breath of fresh air, especially for the council, to be, to hear you sharing some of those very realities with council members. And I think at the end of the day, we're very, as you said, we are grateful to those who have faith in what we're trying to do, and especially in the realities and the needs of, well, not only SIDS, but LDCs for that matter too, and who are supporting us, because I think I always say, what we need is empathy, not sympathy. So I think what has happened on the ground so far now is the reflection on that reality, and we are very grateful. So thank you for the presentation. And I also, excuse me, while I have the floor, I would like to place on record our own appreciation for, especially to those countries who have been gracious enough to start lending their support. Some were also used to benefit from the LDC fund. And then when we graduated, as I said, I woke up the next morning, I was still sleeping on a mat in Samoa, and our vulnerability was still intact. So thank you for sharing again your perspective. And it's great to see you in person, even though it's virtually. So thank you so much for your contribution to our discussion. So with that, I invite Council to move to agenda item 2, which is the adoption of our agenda. So I think just want to recall that the provisional agenda for consideration by the Council had already been circulated to all Council members as document GEF LTC LTCF.SCCF.33/01. So I open the floor if any members would like to speak to the item. Otherwise, we can proceed to adopt the agenda as presented. Well, I saw no one requesting the floor. So the agenda as presented has been adopted. The next agenda on our agenda item is agenda item 3, which is the work program for the Least Developed Countries Fund and the Special Climate Change Fund. And I would now like to invite Chishuru Aoki to present the document for the Council's benefit. Over to you, Chishuru.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Great. So good morning on this glorious morning after the victory of my team. It's my great pleasure to introduce a work program for the LDCF and SCCF for consideration by Council. Similar to the GEF Trust Fund side, this is the first work program for the GEF 8 period. Next slide, please. So the work program includes 2 projects, requesting a total of $10.13 million of project finance and agencies fees from the LDCF and $0.5 million from the SCCF. And you might be wondering, why is the work program so small? Actually, we cleared and included all the proposals that were received for this work program. So we are actually 100% current in terms of the submissions as well as the request for funding in the GEF 8 period. Both the projects are taking a multi-sectoral and systemic approach. Topics that are targeted include climate smart agriculture, food security in rural communities, climate resilient agriculture and value chains, as well as locally led adaptation through entrepreneurship, community level solutions, and community level engagement. Both projects in the work program also identified various opportunities to mitigate impacts created by COVID-19, to deliver climate resilient benefit and contribute towards green recovery and building back better also. They have also elaborated coordination with other ongoing initiatives, in particular with the GCF programming efforts ongoing. Next slide, please. So briefly, a closer look at both projects. One is a national project in Cambodia supported by the LDCF. The other one is a global project that will support resilience in the 58 countries included in the Vulnerable 20 group, or the V20. The latter one is a multi-trust fund project supported by both LDCF and the SACF. With this work program, Cambodia is the first LDC to have access to LDCF resources, and this is towards the initial cap of $20 million for the LDCF access that the countries have in the GEF 8 period. This LDCF project is being implemented by IFAD and it has a focus on resilient agricultural value chains and the resource request I discussed in the previous slide. So the second project is a global project by UNIDO. And given the priorities of a B20, which really focuses a lot on the issues of these vulnerable member countries, and also the focus on loss and damage. This is actually a good partnership for us to engage in, while the LDCF and SCCF resources will support adaptation activities in line with the GEF adaptation strategy. We're pleased as at this opportunity to support adaptation in V20 countries in partnership. Enhancing and adding value to existing partnerships and institutions is a strong thrust of the GEF 8 adaptation strategy. And we're happy that we have this particular project in the very first work program to make that case. While co-financing is not required, these projects are expected to mobilize approximately $15.6 million of co-financing. And most likely, as they progress in the project preparations, we can expect to see additional co-financing, which will be reported back at the time of the CEO endorsement. Next slide, please. The work program projects are well aligned with the COP27 outcomes, particularly the Sharm el-Sheikh implementation plan. And I believe a Deputy Executive Secretary yesterday also talked about the key elements of the Sharm el-Sheikh implementation plan. So the project will provide enhanced support for capacity building and certain elements of technology transfer. And they are actually instrumental in catalyzing action by non-state actors, particularly communities, CSOs, and private sector. And they can complement the agenda of addressing loss and damage by providing complementary adaptation financing, particularly on the global project with the UNIDO and V20. Now, the work program also contributes to two important GEF 8 adaptation priorities. And in this slide, it shows the whole of society. So let me talk about that first. The whole of society approach in two projects is characterized by project interventions, which are community-based with government engagement at multiple levels from national to local. The concept is further reinforced with specific support on global collaboration and South-South knowledge exchange elements. Next slide, please. So this slide shows gender and the private sector intervention. The two projects considered gender equality in their initial project design. They also specify measures to address gender inequalities in access to finance and climate technology, as well as in women's participation in decision making. The projects will both ensure the participation of women as key stakeholders, in particular in the development of frameworks and strategies to promote adaptation, innovation, and entrepreneurship, as well as in policy review and formulation. One project will create a gender council comprising gender champions who are actively engaged in the various stages of the agricultural value chains. And last but not least, on the focus on private sector innovation, private sector engagement is a very distinct focus of the work program, and it is a priority for the GEF 8 strategy for us also. Both projects are advancing the role of the private sector in adaptation through the provision of innovative technology solutions, as well as identification and application of business models. Next slide, please. So this slide summarizes the expected results. Because this is the LDCF and SCCF, there is a separate results framework that we're keeping track of on the adaptation benefits. These are not the so-called global environmental benefits. As part of the GEF 8 programming strategy and the council agreement, the list of core indicators for the LDCF and SCCF has been expanded to 5. And to take into consideration, in particular, our contribution related to the private sector enhancement of private sector engagement. So let me quickly run through the results across the core indicators from these two projects. So we're expecting to have 94,000 direct beneficiaries, including 90,000 from the LDCF and 4,000 from the SCCF portion. For across the board, 50% of the beneficiaries are females. So in total, 47,000 female beneficiaries will be expected from these two projects. The activities will also bring about 20,000 hectares of land under climate resilient management. And will mainstream climate resilience in at least 3 policies and plans or development frameworks. And we do expect these numbers to rise significantly in the project development and implementation phase. And now the LDCF and SCCF finance activities will together result in at least 203,000 people, sorry, that's a little hard to say, of having enhanced capacity to identify climate risks and or engage in adaptation measures. In each case, 50% of these with enhanced capacity and training will be female. So we're looking at a total combined number of 101,500 women benefiting from the enhanced capacity opportunities. So finally, on this newly introduced core indicator in private sector engagement, the LDCF project in particular will support 30 enterprises to engage in climate change adaptation and resilient actions. So with that, last slide, please. Thank you so much. And I and my team are on hand to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aoki, for the presentation and for providing those important statistics for the benefit of council members. So the floor is open now for any council member who want to speak on the work program. And I will request William to assist.
Thank you very much. Rene has asked for the floor. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I'd really like to voice our enthusiasm. We can definitely approve the 2 project proposals, and we very much appreciate the fact that they strengthen local participation to adaptation measures. And of course, based on COP27 decisions, it's important for each fund organization to look at what it can do within its own mandate in relation to the importance issues like loss and damage. We feel that what we can do in our own mandate is, of course, in relation to assisting developing countries in averting, minimizing, and addressing loss and damage associated with the adverse effects of climate change. And that's why we welcome this support to climate adaptation. Both projects strengthen local level participation in adaptation measures, which is good. Also, monitoring the results of projects is important. Both the Netherlands and Finland strongly support the principles of locally led adaptation, we think it's crucial to learn as well as replicate and scale good practices. And it's also good that the projects are aligned with the NDC and NAP of Cambodia. There's a need to follow also included reporting on the implementation of those. Both projects, we feel, strengthen local level participation, and also monitoring the results of the projects is important. So thank you very much for your good work.
Thank you very much. Tom, you have the floor, followed by Sam from UK.
Thank you, William. I am very impressed with Dutch IT because Rene looks like he's doing his morning commute in the train, and he sounds so great. I wouldn't be able to do that in Canada, so we may need some Dutch help over here. Anyways, thank you, Ches. Thank you, William. Everything that you presented shows the clear innovation, value add, and the fact that this is a true partnership to be there with people who are most in need of our support. And I hear wonderful things like advances on gender, private sector partnership, as well as the V20. And the V20 loss and damage, very important. And at COP27, Canada, along with many others, and the V20, we are together. It's not about the donor recipient. We are together to stand up on the global shield against climate risk. And loss and damage is one of those big issues that just is so big for everyone. And we need everyone to be at the table. And I'm glad that one of the two projects, even though the amount may look small, but the impact will be significant. And we hope that over the course of the next 4 years under this phase of the GEF, that we will continue to build out the global shield in order for us to continue to be there for the most vulnerable. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Sam, followed by Shala. Sam, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Chair, Co-Chair and Council. I would just like to make a couple of brief general points. The UK is a strong supporter of GEF 8 adaptation strategy, and in particular, the inclusion of a specific window of support for SIDS through the SCCF. We welcome the support pledged at COP27, and we are actively considering potential UK support to the SCCF. We will also be closely monitoring the progress of the LDCF and SCCF and engaging actively going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shala, you have the floor, followed by Sylvia.
Thank you, William. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Since this is the first time I'm taking the floor during this council meeting, I wanted to first express my sincere condolences on the passing of Gustavo Fonseca and appreciation for all the work that he contributed to the GEF and the LDCF and SCCF. I also wanted to express my thanks to Carlos Manuel, Ambassador Hunt, and all the ministers, representatives, and others who contributed to the LDCF SCCF ministerial dialogue and pledging event at Sharm el-Sheikh. Our U.S. Assistant Secretary for Oceans, Environment and Science, Monica Medina, was extremely pleased to be able to moderate that event and to hear firsthand the clear accounts from vulnerable countries on the impact that these two funds can have for improving adaptation action, particularly the new window and emphasis on small island developing states. As we emphasized at that event, we strongly support the new GEF 8 programming strategy for adaptation in the LDCF and SCCF. For this work program, the United States is pleased to review the two projects for Cambodia and the V20, and we particularly appreciate the multi-sectoral approach in line with the new programming strategy. And as others have said, the focus on locally led adaptation and the complementarity to loss and damage finance is also very important, and we're pleased to see that. Finally, I would also like to read in a footnote to include in the meeting summaries, and this footnote has also been provided directly to the Secretariat. The United States, in light of its policies for certain development projects in countries whose governments are, 1, not addressing trafficking in persons, or 2, have engaged in a pattern of gross violations of internationally recognized human rights, opposes the following project and therefore does not join a council decision that would support the LDCF project 11055 in Ethiopia, Nicaragua, and South Sudan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sylvie, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. Germany welcomes the work program, which initiates the new GEF 8 phase. We would like to thank and congratulate all staff for their tireless efforts to successfully move into the implementation of the new 2022 to 2026 GEF programming strategy on adaptation to climate change. We believe that this phase will be of crucial importance for the most vulnerable communities in both least developed and non-LDC countries, including SIDS. On this note, we once again want to express our appreciation of the newly established financing window for SIDS under the SCCF that will fill an important programming gap by the GEF. With regards to this work program, we welcome the continuation of efforts in Cambodia through the LDCF. We also appreciate the focus of the Multi-Trust Fund project on capacity development at local levels to access adaptation finance in LDCs and non-LDCs, including SIDS. We strongly support the focus on improving the access to adaptation finance, which can be challenging, especially at local levels. We are happy to see that the multiple highly vulnerable SIDS are included in this proposal. We would like to request further information as to the focus areas, particularly for non-LDC SIDS, targeted in this proposal, such as Vanuatu, Samoa, Marshall Islands, Palau, and Papua New Guinea. Overall, we recognize these two projects as a particularly good start to the new GEF 8 phase, and as always, will provide comments and requests in writing within the determined timeframe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you also to Andrea for the comment in the chat. And I now give the floor to Emily. You have the floor.
Thank you, William. I'll be brief as well. LDCs and SIDS are really a key priority for Denmark, and in programming our adaptation finance, and we're also very happy to approve this work program. And in particular, we're very pleased to see the collaboration with the V20 on the establishment of the Multi-Trust Fund, and the swift efforts of the LDCF and SCCF to provide complementary support to loss and damage finance within their mandates, and in line with the new Sharm el-Sheikh implementation plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any more requests for the floor, so back to you, Co-Chair.
Thank you, William. I'd like to thank council members for their questions and comments. So I'll give the floor to Ms. Aoki if she has any additional comments to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Really, there were no questions, but we're very much appreciative of the strong support, but as well as encouragement for this work program by those who spoke, but also for the strong support for the direction that we're taking with the LDCF and SCCF in the GEF 8 period and beyond. And we very much appreciate the strong political support, as well as consideration for additional support that are being considered by a number of countries that spoke during this session. So with that, thank you. Over.
Thank you, Ms. Aoki. So with that, can I, sorry, William?
Yes, thank you, Ambassador. We have a couple of more requests for the floor. So Corentin, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, William. Sorry for the direction. Yeah, Belgium welcomes and fully supports this work program, and we commend the fact that this work program follows the operational improvements agreed by at the last LDCF-SCCF Council in June 2022. And we appreciate that the global project will contribute to address loss and damage within the mandate of the LDCF and SCCF. While this work program presented at this council meeting is of course rather limited, but we are confident that larger work programs will be presented at the next council meetings, and that the financial resources already provided to the LDCF and SCCF will be fully programmed as soon as possible. And we also hope that their implementation will follow swiftly and effectively. That's all for the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Gabriela, you have the floor.
Thank you, William, and sorry to come in late. Just quickly wanted to also echo our support to the work program and wanted to use the opportunity to express our great appreciation to all the contributors that stepped up during COP27. Also very much appreciate the support we got from the GEF Secretariat and the AOSIS chair in that endeavor. Without that support from others, we would have not been able to continue our support and step it further up. So very much appreciate that. And thank you also to those that just now expressed that they're considering making a contribution. We really do believe that the new GEF 8 LDCF SCCF strategy is really good and targets those which are most vulnerable and should really receive our support. Thanks for that.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. Anybody else would like to take the floor? I see no more requests. Okay, sorry, back to you, Ambassador Fitouli.
Thank you, William. Well, just want to thank Belgium and Switzerland also for their support to the work program. And with that, can I invite Council to adopt a draft decision that is included in document GEF/LDCF.SCCF.33/03 that had already been circulated. I see no objections. It is so adopted. Thank you to the Council. Our next agenda item is agenda item 4, which is the progress report on the list developed on the LDCF and the SCCF. And to present this, I now ask Ms. Aoki to do that for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Now, I have the pleasure to present the progress report on the LDCF and SCCF. Next slide, please. So first, let us focus very briefly on the LDCF. Next slide, please. So this slide shows a financial summary of the LDCF. As of September 30th, 2022, cumulative pledges to the LDCF amounted to almost $2 billion, $1.97 billion. Of the pledges, 90%, or about 1.77 billion, has been paid. And 203 million pledges remained outstanding. Paid contributions received during the reporting period totaled $12.3 million from Belgium, Walloon region of and Belgium also. A total of $4.5 million in new pledges were made during the reporting period from Finland, Ireland, and Qatar. We're also very delighted, as mentioned during the opening and the last agenda item, that at UNCCC COP in Egypt, a total of $70.6 million of new pledges were also made by a number of governments. And those are subject to parliamentary and government approvals. Funds available for new projects at the end of September 2022 amounted to $92.5 million. Of this amount, you just approved the work program of $10.4 million. So we do have a little bit of wiggle room for us to consider and include for programming in the next work program. And we're hoping that the availability of funding for the next work program will also be enlarged from this figure that's showing here. Let's just summarize that the progress that we have made on CEO endorsements. During the reporting period, 16 LDCF full-size projects were endorsed or approved by the CEO. That's for a total of $107 million. These projects are expected to leverage over $404 million in co-financing. Next slide, please. This slide shows the progress made in the previous fiscal year 22, which covers a period of July 2021 to June of 2022. We're actually glad to see the much of progress being made on the LDCF within this fiscal year. This has been added to the progress report as requested by a council member so that it's easier to keep track of the progress on the annualized basis also. In this fiscal year, pledges totaled $302.5 million and funding approval totaled $109 million. 23 projects had PIFs approved in this fiscal year. 28 projects were CEO endorsed or approvals. These 28 projects were expected to benefit 8.8 million people, of which 51% are female. Next slide, please. This slide is showing the cumulative LDCF agency distribution. Different agencies are currently implementing LDCF projects. The agency with the largest share on a cumulative basis is continues to be UNDP. However, its share of the portfolio has been decreasing in recent years. It has actually decreased from 54% to 47% in the past 4 years. FAO is currently implementing the second largest amount of LDCF projects with 14%, followed by UNEP. And we are also keeping track of the total share of the portfolio with multilateral development banks and EFAD. Cumulatively, since inception, we're looking at about 23% of the programming being done by the MDBs in EFAD. So the large historical UNDP shares in part due to the limited number of agencies that were engaged in climate adaptation in the earlier period of the LDCF operations. Over time, the number of the number of agencies that have the capacity and the interest to engage in the climate adaptation programming with the GEF has increased significantly. So that's actually contributing to a more balanced LDCF programming. Just to give you a little bit more recent update, if you look at the agency concentration in the GEF 7 period, there was no agency with more than 1/3 of the portfolio. What that means is in the recent periods, we are starting to see a much more balanced programming with no agency having more than 1/3 of the programming. And we do expect this kind of trend to continue into the GEF 8 period programming. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes the expected results of all approved LDCF projects since inception. In totality, the portfolio is expected to directly reduce the vulnerability of more than 60 million people, improve the management of over 9 million hectares to withstand the effects of climate change, and train close to 2 million people on to have enhanced capacity to identify, prioritize, implement, and monitor and evaluate climate adaptation strategy measures. Since the GEF started tracking sex aggregated data at the beginning of GEF 6, we have also applied that to the LDCF and SDCF. And since GEF 6, 45% of the LDCF beneficiaries, as well as close to parity of 48% of people trained, are expected to be female. And we will continue to focus on these figures so that there is parity or even much better achieved. Next slide, please. So what are the sectors that the countries are asking us to prioritize in the LDCF programming? So since inception, this shows a number of projects that can be categorized in various sectors. The most common sectoral focus has been on agriculture, followed by water, and climate information systems and climate information services. Ecosystem protection, resilient restoration and management, and these elements are also very much a common focus. Next slide, please. Now we will provide you with updates on the progress from the Special Climate Change Fund. Next slide, please. In terms of the financial summary, as of September 30th, 2022, cumulative pledges to the SCCF amounted to $306 million. Of the total resources pledged, 350 million or 98% has already been paid. For the particular reporting period, there were no pledges or contributions received for the SCCF. Funds available for the new approval at the end of September 22 amounted to $9.8 million. Of this amount, approximately $550,000 has been allocated for the multi-trust fund projects in the work program that Council just approved. As mentioned earlier, we're also delighted that at the pledging event in COP27, a total of $35 million in new pledges were made by Denmark, Germany, Ireland, Slovenia, and Switzerland, and of course, subject to parliamentary and government approvals. So we're very much encouraged by this new infusion of resources, knowing that there are many countries that are waiting to program and access SCCF resources. Since inception, $365 million has been approved under the SCCF for 93 projects. 4 new projects with SCCF support had PIFs approved during the reporting period, and 1 additional project was CEO approved through the one-step process. All these recently approved projects were supported through the very successful Challenge Program for Adaptation Innovation. Next slide, please. So similar to the SCCF, we are now starting to provide a fiscal year-based progress, and this shows the paid contributions, cumulative pledges, as well as cumulative funding approvals. And we're also reporting on the beneficiary on the annualized basis. It's 909,816 beneficiaries of CEO endorsed projects. Of this number, 41% are female. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes the agency distribution since inception. The SCCF has actually enjoyed a balanced distribution of approvals among agencies. Since inception, 13 GEF agencies has been involved in the SCCF programming. And as you can see in the chart, it's the World Bank, UNDP, IFAD are the ones who have programmed the largest number of resources as well as projects. And it's also interesting to note that the majority of the funding since inception of 55% has been done through the MDBs and IFAD. And we do believe this is an important feature of the SCCF that really deserves to be highlighted. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes the expected results of all approved SCCF projects. These projects are expected to directly reduce the vulnerability of almost 9 million people, improve the management of more than 5 million factors to withstand the effect of climate change, and train 218,000 people to identify, prioritize, implement, monitor, and evaluate adaptation strategies and measures. In terms of policies, plans, and processes that are developed to strengthen the adaptation, integration, and measures, the SCCF project portfolio in totality has been identified to support close to 500 of them. And they have also carried out 191 risk and vulnerability assessments and other relevant scientific and technical assessments throughout their project lifecycle. Next slide, please. And once again, here's the sectoral distribution. As in the case of the LDCF, SCCF projects are focused on the range of sectors. Water, agriculture, climate information services come at the top. Ecosystem protection, restoration and management, disaster risk management, infrastructure and transportation, coastal management are some of the areas and themes that the countries have prioritized to come for the SCCF support. Next slide, please. One of the innovative features of the GEF-8 programming and strategy is the inclusion of the dedicated programs. The strategy includes 3 complementary dedicated programs. The first one in communications and visibility enhancements, the second one in outreach and capacity support and planning and programming, and the third one in organizing learning and coordination. Let me provide a very quick progress report on how we have been advancing on these 3 dedicated programs. Next slide, please. The first dedicated program is on communications and visibility enhancements. This is an area that we've had a number of council conversations as well as requests to strengthen. We have heard your guidance that the enhanced communication visibility is of utmost importance for the LDCF and SCCF. We have initiated the process to retain a dedicated communication expert and to develop a focused communication strategy. And the strategy will amplify efforts underway to create and distribute editorial and social media contents related to LDCF and SCCF funded projects. And we're also aiming to develop and strengthen partnerships with communication counterparts in the ecosystem of climate change, in particular adaptation and adaptation finance. Next slide, please. The second dedicated program is on outreach and capacity support for LDCF SIS planning and programming. This basically addresses the priority needs that have been put in front of us of enhancing access to climate finance, and as well as enhancing the quality of entry of adaptation rationale, as well as really being helping the countries to build the capacity to be able to access resources in a more streamlined and efficient manner. So we have been developing outreach and capacity support for LDCs and SIS on planning and programming, a series of regional workshops and thematically focused what we call clinics are being planned to help strengthen the programming and also really enhance the notion of country ownership and design of project concepts. Overall, these efforts are expected to enhance access to climate finance. Like I said, this is one of the priorities that have been put in front of us. And as mentioned yesterday, there has been a lot of efforts for the GEF to work with the GCF, particularly in partnership with the Task Force on Access to Climate Finance. The joint investment planning efforts in 5 countries, particularly those taking place with 3 LDCs and 2 SIS, will be anchored under this dedicated program. And we're in active consultations with some of the countries to start roll out that particular program too. Next slide, please. The last dedicated program seeks to enhance organizational learning and coordination among countries and across the GEF partnership. And this is with a view to really strengthen the impact of LDCF and SCCF support. It's really based on the evolutionary nature of climate adaptation strategies. So we are now contemplating the establishment of an advisory task force to help guide this program by identifying key knowledge gaps and learning opportunities to be addressed. Learning products will be produced and actively shared for key themes in the GEF-8 strategy, and the program will seek to help learning gain through implementation that can be used in the ongoing design and implementation of projects the countries and agencies are embarking on moving forward. Okay, so those were the elements that I wanted to provide on the dedicated programs. Now, there is an information document that has been posted on a very exciting and innovative initiative called the Inclusive GEF Assembly Challenge Program. And I would like to take the moment to request my colleague Alok Barnwal to present a couple of slides to brief the council on what is being planned here. Over to you, Alok.
Thank you, Chiz. Yes, my greetings to all council members. I'm pleased to present briefly the Inclusive GEF Assembly Challenge Program. This challenge program aims to recognize, celebrate, and advance the vital role of civil society organizations, indigenous peoples, youth, and women and girls in delivering inclusive resilience benefits for people and ecosystems. Utilizing the GEF Assembly global platform, the program will demonstrate GEF's commitment to engage with non-state actors in advancing its mission of healthy planet and healthy people. Finally, it will also show GEF's continuous pursuit to identify and support innovative solutions for the pressing global climate change and environmental degradation challenges. To meet these objectives, the challenge program aims to take a three-pronged approach. First, it will provide CSOs, indigenous peoples, youth, women, and many other key actors a global platform, which is the GEF Assembly, to present their initiatives. Second, it will provide implementation support to innovative locally led initiatives in scaling up their impacts. And third, it will facilitate continuous knowledge exchange, partnerships, and peer learning among project proponents and other stakeholders. Next slide, please. This slide shows the key design elements of the Inclusive GEF Assembly Challenge Program, which is very much inspired by the very successful Challenge Program for Adaptation Innovation of the LDCF and SSEF. First, the GEF Secretariat will launch a global call for submission of proposals to invite innovative initiatives in developing countries by CSOs, IP groups, and other project proponents. The themes could include nature-based solutions, sustainable land and water management, water security, sustainable livelihoods, and other innovative solutions. The Secretariat will then engage with the GEF constituencies for their nominations or proposals and strategic inputs. The program will also be open to engagement of constituencies through their extended institutions, including country embassies, high commissions, bilateral funding institutions, and other departments in the target regions to explore alignment of priorities and potential of leveraging additional resources for the initiatives. A selection committee comprising of CSO network, staff, GEF Secretariat, and one member from a youth-based organization will then finalize the winners of the challenge program. These winners will then be announced at the GEF Assembly in Vancouver, Canada, in a high-level flagship event. Finally, each winner will be also provided up to $100,000 US through a dedicated medium-sized project funded by the Special Climate Change Fund to implement and scale up their initiatives and actions. So I hope this provides a useful overview of the Inclusive GEF Assembly Challenge Program. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present this. And with this, back to you, Chiz.
Thank you, Alok. Next slide, please. So with that, we conclude our presentation on the progress report, and as well as the a little bit of briefing on the challenge program for Inclusive Assembly. And we will be pleased to answer any questions that council members may have. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you, Ms. Aoki, for the providing that progress report on. Well, I open the floor for any comments from council members.
Thank you. Tom, had you requested the floor on this item? No? Okay, so what was on the chat was from the previous one. Okay, so who would like to take the floor on this item? Germany, that's Sylvia, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. Germany highly welcomes this progress report for the LDCF and SCCF, which provides, as usual, a valuable overview of portfolio performance in a transparent and comparable manner. And we support the fund's commitment to continue deepening its investments and opportunities to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19. We see that these investments will have the potential to deliver climate change adaptation and resilience benefits and contribute towards green recovery and building forward better. Germany appreciates the efforts taken by the GEF Secretariat to increase its visibility within stories and mentions in media and other social media outlets. On this note, we have a minor request for clarity. Is the number of media stories and mentions of LDCF and SCCF increased to a total of 975, as noted in the progress report, or to 875? Because we were not really clear. It's just a minor question, and maybe you can follow up on that later, but in generally, we're very happy on how the latest social media presence of the LDCF and SCCF have played out. Finally, we are happy to see that the new strategic direction for both the LDCF and SCCF is now coming to life in GEF 8. Germany will stay committed to supporting the most vulnerable countries together with the GEF and LDCF, and we look forward to the next council meeting to be able to review the first reporting period for the GEF 8. We also hope that especially non-LDC SIDS will make use of the newly established financing window under the SCCF. Thank you for your continued effort and fruitful discussions during the sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now, Tom, you have requested the floor, so go ahead.
Thank you, William. Dear colleagues on the council, you probably sense that there is choreography going on right now. So I cannot help it but to add a few points on the progress report. As always, Canada really likes what the CEO, the Secretariat, the CSO network, and all of us do on LDCF, SCCF, because this is the part of the GEF Council, LDCF, SCCF Council that I really like, because it is inclusive. We are there for the most vulnerable. And I thank you, Chis Alok, for the 2 slides on the Challenge Fund. As you all know, I'm on behalf of Canada, always voice strong support for inclusion, for partnership. And this is no different when it comes to the Challenge Fund. When we talk about women and girls, Indigenous peoples, the inclusion of youth, civil society, and also there are a few novel features in the Challenge Fund, is that basically, if you're up to it, this is actually our Challenge Fund. And we're not asking for money. We're asking for even more precious contributions from everyone, which is, what you have up here, what you have in your heart, and also connections to those who could support grassroots action on water security, on food, on taking care of Mother Nature for adaptation purposes, and so on and so forth. And there is a reference to a mysterious international donor in the documentation. And let us say that there is mystery involved in that. And hopefully within a week or so, that mysterious person will end up signing something in order to actually launch this. So thank you so much, Chiz and everyone. And let us co-create this challenge so that the assembly will be as inclusive, impactful, and touching as possible. Sorry, Chiz, I did not honor my commitment to read word for word. I just spoke from my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for the support and comment from Netherlands and Finland, and other comments in the chat. So let me move now to Gabriela. And oh, I see Baba has also requested floor. Anyway, so Gabriela goes first, and then Baba from Senegal. Gabriela, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. It's actually going to be our advisor, Lucrezia, who will speak. I just wanted to quickly express their gratitude for the presentation of the challenge program, and we're of course looking forward to the presentation at the assembly of the winners. So over to Lucrezia.
Go ahead, Lucrezia.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor, and apologies, I just jumped in, so I feel a little bit not really in the best position. I will thank, after having read the report, the progress report, I'm very pleased with what you've already achieved, especially also with the under GEF 8. I just hadn't noted one or two specific questions, so if it is the time, I would just leave them with you. One was with regard to the support that you provide to LDCs, in particular with regard to NAPs, and then how you work together with the GCF on those, as it was mentioned that you were working more on the implementation than the preparation, but it wasn't fully clear to me after reading the report. And maybe the other issue that I've been wondering about was with regard to the IP going forward, how you, as there are the IPs that are focused in particular on LDCs, and so how you plan on working under GEF 8 with the two funds under these two IPs.
Thank you very much, Lucrezia. Baba from Senegal, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, William, de me donner la parole. Je voudrais remercier le secrétariat du FEM et particulièrement Madame Chizuru pour sa présentation. Nous remercions surtout le FEM pour tout le travail qui est en train d'être fait pour permettre au pays de mieux connaître le fonds pour les paiements et notamment les opportunités de financement que ce mécanisme-là offre. Parce que comme vous le savez, le fonds des paiements est le seul fonds du mécanisme financier de la Convention qui est dédié aux pays les moins avancés, qui, comme vous le savez, sont les pays les plus vulnérables au changement climatique. L'essentiel des membres de la circonscription du Sahel, pour l'essentiel, sont constitués de paiements, raison pour laquelle la présentation de Chizuru nous intéresse particulièrement. Alors, nous la remercions surtout pour les efforts qui ont été faits durant la COP 27 à Sharm el-Sheikh, parce que le FEM a pris cette occasion pour présenter au groupe des paiements ce qui sont en train d'être faits. Et ça a été une excellente occasion pour l'ensemble des pays de poser des questions, d'exprimer au FEM leurs difficultés et d'avoir des réponses. Et je crois que ce dialogue a été extrêmement utile pour beaucoup de pays, en tout cas qui accordent une importance particulière à ce fonds-là. Ce que je voudrais dire, c'est véritablement demander encore une fois au secrétariat du FEM de renforcer l'appui aux pays les moins avancés dans le cadre de la mise en œuvre de leur PNA, de leurs plans nationaux d'adaptation. Parce que je crois que le LDC avait déjà beaucoup fait avec les PANA à l'époque les programmes nationaux d'adaptation au changement climatique. Actuellement, les PNA sont mis en place pour beaucoup de pays. Il y en a qui n'ont pas encore finalisé la mise en œuvre de leur PNA, mais ce qui importe le plus actuellement, c'est d'aller vers des actions concrètes d'adaptation qui permettent à ces PMA-là de mieux atténuer les conséquences négatives des changements climatiques. Je voudrais également féliciter le FEM parce qu'à l'occasion de la COP27, nous avons pu organiser un dialogue de haut niveau pour inviter les pays à davantage contribuer au LDC Fund. Et ça a été une occasion pour certains pays développés d'exprimer encore leur volonté d'accompagner les pays les moins avancés à travers le FEM. Et je crois que c'est tout à l'honneur du FEM, parce que si ces pays-là continuent à accompagner le fonds, c'est tout simplement parce qu'ils font confiance au FEM. Donc, je tenais à faire ce témoignage, poser cette doléance des PMA et remercier encore une fois le secrétariat. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Baba. So thank you, Shailen, Andrea, and Stephanie for your support in the chat. And I give the floor to Emily. Please go ahead.
Thank you, William. And also many thanks to GIS for the presentation. Denmark welcomes the report, the progress report, and we're very pleased to hear about the achievements realized and also the planned activities under both funds. And we particularly welcome the joint effort on the GEF, GCF National Investment Planning in 5 countries that are either LDCs or SIDS. And also thanks to Alok for the introduction of the Inclusive Assembly Challenge Program. We very much welcome this initiative and the platform it provides to CSOs, IPs, youth and women. And we look forward to hearing the outcome presented at the assembly. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you also to Giovanni for his comment in the chat. Does anybody else wish to take the floor? Corentin, you have the floor.
Thank you, William. Belgium welcomes this progress report and reiterates its high appreciation of the LDCF. Belgium remains fully engaged to support the LDCF and the new GEF adaptation strategy for the LDCF and the SCCF. I would like to recall the pledge made by Belgium in Glasgow at COP26 to support the LDCF with 15 million each year. And we warmly welcome the pledges made by other countries in Glasgow. And likewise, Belgium is very grateful to the new pledges mentioned in this report from Ireland, Finland, and Qatar, I think. The LDCF is now equipped with a sound adaptation strategy and additional resources to continue greatly fulfill its unique mandate. And to conclude, we particularly appreciate the mention of 6 disaggregated data concerning the results presented in this report. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Anyone else would like to take the floor? Okay, I see no more requests, so back to you, Co-Chair.
Thank you, William. So I now invite Aoki to respond to some of the questions that some council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. And thank you very much to all the council members for the encouragement as well as the recognition of the progress that's being made. A couple of specific questions in front of us. There was a question from Germany on the numbers. To clarify, there were 875 media stories in fiscal year 22. Of this, 531 were for the LDCF and 325 are related to SCCF. And there was also a number of the stories that were both relevant to the LDCF and SCCF, and I believe that was 19 of them. From the specific questions from this Lucretia from Switzerland, on the question of support to the NAPS, In even the GEF 7 strategy, there were a conversation that took place between the GEF and GCF. Because the countries can access resources from the readiness for the NAP preparations, we had a conversation and decided that our support from the LDCF and SCCF will focus more on the implementation of the results as well as updates, while the GCF will focus on the preparation of NAPs through the readiness program. And what we had done earlier on was that whenever there were requests coming to us, as well as those coming to the GCF on this particular issues, we informally exchanged the between the secretaries to make sure that there were no overlaps, as well as that there was no, I would say, gaps in the support that could be provided. And then throughout the GEF 7 period, the instances of these overlaps actually really decreased. And I do think the countries at this point are very well aware that where to go for the NAP preparation, which is for the GCF, and elements that could be moving ahead for the implementation, they're coming to the GEF as well as the GCF. So the coordination on that front has been running for several years already. On the questions of IPs, as we included in the programming strategy, the IP programming will go on the side of the GEF Trust Fund. There might be some countries that are getting support from the LDCF and now SCCF that might be interested in having complementary investments or programs to the IPs. And once those are identified and the countries come to us about those complementary support, we will definitely consider them. I think the practicalities on the ground was that it would have been too difficult and challenging, too complex to align formally the LDCF and SCCF resources into the IP design, because they're coming from separate funds and they're actually looking at different kinds of priorities for adaptation. So the perspective from our side is, once the IPs are designed and moving ahead and the countries want to complement, there will be plenty of opportunities to do so. On the comments from Baba from Senegal, thank you very much. And I do want to acknowledge the strong leadership demonstrated by Senegal. Currently, the Senegal has the presidency as well as chairmanship of the LDC group, and we're very much appreciative of the collaboration as well as the spirit of a partnership that the GEF and we have enjoyed with the LDC group in Senegal. And thank you so much for also mentioning that we've been having these briefing sessions with LDCs at the SPs as well as the COP. And we've also started this kind of engagement with CIS starting from the June subsidiary body session in Bonn. And we also had one with the CIS in the in Sharm el Sheikh. So we would like to continue that kind of outreach and informal exchange with the LDCs and CIS, as well as other interested countries, because we want to make sure that the countries can ask us questions as well as raise any concerns that they might have in their efforts to program and access the LDCF and SCCF. And we do think that having these kinds of informal exchanges at the conference of the parties is, as well as other major events, will be a good opportunity to do so. So thank you also from the comments from Belgium for your steadfast support, as well as from Denmark. And I think those are the answers that I could provide. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Canada for your very much visionary support for this inclusion agenda that we think is very much nicely complementing the efforts that we have been undertaken on the SCCF for the challenge program. And we very much look forward to engaging with any interested constituencies, GEF Council members and constituencies, to move forward. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention one thing. There was in the chat a comment from the CSO network. We are very happy that we have been having good conversations with the CSO network. And as part of the challenge program, the Inclusive Assembly that Alok presented, we are very much looking forward to engaging with the CSO network to help us identify and sort of make the final recommendations on the initiatives that we can support. So their leadership as well as insights on the networking would be very much valuable for this effort to move ahead. In addition, as part of the dedicated program, the second element of the dedicated program, we are currently in conversation with the CSO network about their enhanced engagement when we have these regional, sub-regional conversations with countries. And we do think that these are the tangible and practical opportunities from the side of the LDCF and SCCF to work together and enhance a partnership with the CSO group. And we do believe those are also complementary to the ongoing efforts to really enhance and clarify the CSO network and GEF partnership. So with that, thank you very much. And I hand it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Aoki, for responding to some of those specific questions, and also for the additional clarification on some of the issues that were raised. Well, I think we've concluded our discussion on this particular agenda item. Can I now invite Council to adopt the draft decision as included in the document GEF/LDCF.SCCF.33/04? I see no objection, so decision has been adopted. Thank you, Council. Well, next on our agenda is agenda item 05, which is other business. I don't recall any council member raising any issues to be considered under this agenda item. So that basically concludes our discussion on agenda item 6 and the other business. In terms of agenda item 6, which is the joint summary of the co-chairs of the, I think this has already been sent out to council members and alternates. Oh, no, okay, well, no, I'll give the floor to Willem to clarify. Over to you, Willem.
Thank you very much. So now that we've come to the joint summary of the co-chairs, my colleagues of the Secretariat are preparing it. As soon as it is ready, we will send it out by mail to everybody. And this will happen while we move back to the GEF Council to look at the summary of the co-chairs of the council that was sent out last night with a slight correction this morning because there was a mistake in the numbering. So what we can do now, if you agree, Mr. Co-Chair, is that we move back to the GEF Council and take up the adoption or the consideration of the summary of the co-chairs. And unless I see any other comments, then that's the steps that we should take now. And then after that, we will come back to the LDCF SCCF to go through the joint summary of the co-chairs of that council.
Thank you, Willem, for that clarification. So based on that, can I invite that we now resume as a GEF Council so that we can go over the joint summary of the co-chairs that was circulated last night, and I think a revised copy has also been circulated to members. So if that's okay with members, I suggest that we now focus on the joint summary of the GEF Council co-chairs. So I take it that is acceptable to council. I would like to suggest that to facilitate our consideration of the co-chairs joint summary, that we deal in terms of like for the opening of the meeting, we deal with paras 1 to 5, and then for the next agenda item, for the next decision, it will be looking at paras 7 to 20. Yeah. And then and we'll adopt one by one as we progress. If that's okay with council members, then the decision approved as shown on para 5. See no objection, then the next one will be basically we are looking at paragraph 6. Sorry, just bear with me. Yeah, I think we're trying to explain earlier that we'll approve decision by decision. So the next decision is decision 29/2022, which is the GEF Monitoring Report 2022, and we're referring to paragraph 6. So I think that's approved. The next decision is decision 30/2022, which is the work program for GEF Trust Fund. And for this particular decisions, we'll be looking at paras 7 to 20. I see no hands up. So the next decision is decision 31/2022, which is country engagement strategy implementation arrangements for GEF 8. And for this decision, it's paragraphs 20 to 23. No hands up. So the next decision is decision 32/2022, which is GEF Small Grants Program to implementation arrangements for GEF 8. And the paragraph is 24, paragraph 24. I think that's acceptable to members. The next is decision 33/2022, which is the report on lead agency selection process for the integrated programs, and it's para 25. Okay, let's move on to the next decision, which is decision 34, which is relations with convention and other international institutions, and it's para 26. No one asking for the floor, so continue on to decision 35/2022, which is third-party review of agency compliance with GEF minimum standards, and it's paragraph 27. Okay, let's move on to decision 36/2022, which is the proposed framework for GEF's role in a financial mechanism for the internationally legally binding instrument under negotiation under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. So that's decision 36, and it's paragraph, the relevant paragraph is paragraph 28. I think that's acceptable. So the next one is decision 37/2022, which is the amendments to the instrument of the establishment of the restructured GEF. And it's para 29. I think that's acceptable also. Decision 38/2022, which is the GEF Blended Finance Global Program and NGI Policy Update, paragraph 30. See no hands for the floor, so that's adopted. The next one is decision 39/2022, management response to the review of the GEF management action record. And the relevant paragraph is paragraph 31. That's okay too. So the next one is decision 40/2022. The Council, following the discussion of documents, request the Independent Evaluation Office to provide the GEF Secretariat with complete evaluation at least 4 weeks prior to the Council document posting deadline, and therefore at least 8 weeks prior to the Council meeting, in order to facilitate the timely preparation of management responses. I think so this was a reflection of what was agreed yesterday when we discussed this agenda item. So decision 40/22 is also approved. The next one is decision 41, management response, evaluation of the effects of COVID-19 pandemics on GEF activities. And it's paragraph 33. That's okay. The next decision is decision 42, report of the selection and review committee. And it's paragraph 34. Again, see no ask for the floor. The next decision is decision 43/2022, which is other business. Okay, next one is the decision 44/2022. And this relates to decision 35/2021, and it's provided in the GEF policy on ethics and conflict of interest, where we approved a alternate council member for the constituency of Argentina, Ms. Judith Torres, as a member of the GEF Ethics Committee for a term of 2 years, or until the expiration of her term on the council, whichever comes first. So that is the last council decision. Yeah. Well, I think now that we have concluded the adoption of our decisions for the GEF Council 65th GEF Council meeting, I've been informed that the co-chairs for the LTCF and SCCF discussion just a few minutes ago has also been circulated. So we would like to give members maybe up to 5 minutes to have a quick look at the co-chair summaries, and then we can consider and hopefully approve that as soon as possible. So 5 minutes, and then we'll resume again. Thank you. Well, the 5 minutes is up now. And we're going to consider the joint summary of the co-chairs of the LTCF, SCCF council meeting. So I think the secretary that already circulated or emailed that our joint summary of the co-chairs. The first 3 paragraphs are the introductory ones. I think we have 2 decisions to approve. So I'm referring, of course, to decision LTCF.SCCF 7/2022, which is the work program for the least developed countries fund and the special climate change fund. And the relevant paragraphs are paragraphs 4, 5, and 6. So those there. Any comments, or is the council happy with it and willing to approve that particular decision? I see no one asking for the floor. Can I suggest then that we approve that decision and we move on to the next decision, which is decision LTCF.SCCF/2022, which is the progress report on the least developed countries fund and the special climate change fund. And the relevant para is para 7. Thank you. I see no hands up. And then I think those are the important decisions that the council had to take, and we've taken those decisions now. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Fituri, for chairing the whole LDCF and SCCF consult meeting. Thanks to all the council members and alternates for the approval of the summary of the co-chairs for the GEF Council, as well as the summary of the chairs with regards to the LDCF, SCCF consult meetings. With this, we are at the end of our 5 days of consult meetings, the 63rd GEF consult meeting and the 33rd LDCF, SCCF. I'm super happy that we did it way in advance of time with regards to our agenda. A couple of messages before I close. First of all, let me thank my co-chair, Ambassador Fituri, for this work as co-chair, and he would be stepping down in his capacities of co-chairs. I feel very proud and very honored to not only be his co-chairs, but also being able to engage in the last couple of council meetings, and learning a lot about him, his experience, and most importantly, on his leadership in supporting us in the last 2 council meetings. So, Ambassador Fituri, my big thanks on behalf of the GEF Secretariat, on behalf of the council meetings and the larger partnership. I think that we've met before with you today. The work that we do at the Secretariat becomes relatively easy. And I'm very, very grateful and my heartfelt feelings to you for the work, and we'll be very close working together. As a matter of fact, I will be with Ambassador Fituri next January in Indonesia in our regional workshops with the South Pacific nations. So I look forward to that. Also, I would like to thank the whole council alternates for the very efficient, positive, and productive work that we did in the last 5 days. I'm very grateful with you all under very exceptional circumstances that we went through, having multiple international events while we plan and were able to achieve to go through these important GEF Council meetings. My thanks also to the agencies, and I felt very good to have them actively participating throughout the whole council meeting. So my big thanks to the agencies as well. All the observers from all the different constituencies, the operational focal points that join us to the whole week. My big thanks as well to all of them. And last but not least, the recognition to my colleagues of the GEF Secretariat for the superb work that they developed throughout the council meeting. Since early October, we've been working around the clock in being able to prepare not only the documents, but also the logistics for this, the last council meeting in 2022. My special thanks to William and Nicolas that also are right next to us, helping us from this, from the secretary position to make this a fluent, efficient, and effective council meeting. My last message to all of you is my best wishes in these next holidays. For those of you that will be going to COP15, I wish you the best. We will be there with a very important team, supporting the party, supporting a very ambitious outcome. COP15 is a once in a one decade event of the CBD, and I look forward to see many of you during COP15. With this, I formally close the 63rd GEF Council meeting, the 33rd LDC FSCCS meetings. My best wishes in the holidays. Happy New Year. And we are totally committed and energized for a very productive GEF 8 rollout in 2023. Thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias to all. Bye. See you, Tom, in in a week over there.
I'm sending my whole army of GEF supporters. I'll be anchoring in Ottawa.
Thank you. Everybody, thank you for everything.